Yes, I have gripes with the Nintendo Switch 2. I have a decent amount of them. I'm not a fanboy of the console, and I'm not a fanboy of Nintendo. So I'm going to tell you what my problems are with the Switch 2. Do I have snots in my nose? All right, maybe a little bit, but now you won't see them anymore. I'm not re-editing that intro. It's like the 5th time I did it.
Breasts.
So the Nintendo Switch 2 is being released June 5th globally. It's going to come in 2 delicious flavors. Well, depending how you feel about the price, it may not be too delicious to you. There's going to be the base vanilla bundle, which is just going to give you the console, and it's going to be $450. Or you could spend $499 and get the Mario Kart World bundle, which gives you the game and the console. That's going to be a limited time bundle, and if you want to get Mario Kart World later on, it's going to be $80. Whereas if you just get it in the bundle, it's just $50 more. That's the way they incentivize you to spend more money on the more expensive bundle. We'll go more into game pricing later. But there are some things, as much as I've shown a lot of love for the Switch 2 and I'm excited for it, there are things that concern me about it. And I've made a list over here, and I want to get into them because I do have gripes about Nintendo's next console. It's not all roses and ass cheeks. I probably should have used a better term instead of that, but we'll go with ass cheeks for now. So the first thing I want to talk about is the requirement for the Switch 2 if you want to expand the storage. The Switch 2 is going to have 256 gigabytes of internal storage, which sounds like a lot more than the base Switch, which has 32 gigabytes, and the Switch OLED, which has 64 gigabytes, but 256 gigabytes is going to be eaten up real fast if games are 80 plus gigabytes for the Switch 2. So you're going to need to expand the storage. And what Nintendo said, and the requirement for the Switch 2 is micro SD express cards. You can't just get a $89 1 terabyte micro SD card off Amazon anymore. You have to get the newer express cards with much faster read and write speeds. For example, if you look for a 1 terabyte card on Amazon, the read speed for it is 190 megabytes per second. The write speed is only 90 megabytes per second. And there's no way you're running big open world games on the Switch 2 off of such a slow card. Now, if you go to SanDisk.com, which I'm looking at here right now, if you get a micro SD express card, which is $72 for 256 gigabytes, which is not that much, you get much faster read and write performance. For sequential read, it's 880 megabytes per second, and for sequential write performance, it's 650 megabytes per second. That's a big jump from the other speeds that I mentioned before. Now, the reason I bring this up, I understand why Nintendo is doing it. It's necessary for these more demanding, bigger games that are going to be on the Switch 2. But the average consumer doesn't understand. They're like, what the hell? I could go to Amazon right now and get a 1 terabyte card for $90, and you want me to, for a quarter of the storage for this faster card, to spend only $17 less? That's really expensive. And 256 gigabytes is not going to give you that much more storage. The problem with me isn't the requirement. I understand it. I'm a big fat dork. The average consumer doesn't get it. And Nintendo hasn't properly explained why micro SD express cards are necessary to expand the storage. And a lot of consumers are feeling jilted and thinking, I now have to spend a ton of money just to store more games? What the hell happened to the base micro SD cards? And I put that on Nintendo for not explaining it properly, and they need to come out and do that. Yes, now let's move on to game pricing. Nintendo is going to charge $80 for games like Mario Kart World. That is eye-watering. That is a lot of money. And hell, we're even hearing that GTA 6 is going to be $100 when it launches. And one of the defenses I heard Nintendo come out with is that, we're just going by how much value a game is giving you.
You serious?
Really? Is that going to be the bar that we set? What about when other publishers come out with a game and they feel the value of their game is $120, $130? Like, where does it end? Where does it end? And with Nintendo's tutorial for the Switch 2, Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour, which is essentially a tech demo, they're charging $10 for it. This is the same company that included Wii Sports with the Wii and Super Mario World with the Super Nintendo. And Reggie Fils-Aimé, who is the former Nintendo president of America, takes issue with them charging for Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour. And this is what he had to say.
You have a few Miyamoto stories, and one of the ones that stood out to me was during the debate over whether or not to pack in Wii Sports with the Wii, and Miyamoto pushed back pretty hard against that, and it was like one of the biggest points of discussion, and kind of one of the bigger wins for you.
Yeah, it's an understatement to say that Mr. Miyamoto pushed back. During the development of the Wii and the Wii Sports software, again, the goal was, we wanted this system to be attractive not only to the most active players, but to new players, and to bring them into the video gaming experience. And we saw Wii Sports as the way to be able to do that, because each of these sports made great use of the Wii Remote. Each sport was known by a global population, right? People know what golf is, they know what bowling is, they know what baseball is. My recommendation was that we pack Wii Sports in with the hardware.
Now, what I find amazing is that, think about it, Reggie is a pretty professional guy, right? And he's talking about how it was an understatement saying that he had a fallout with Shigeru Miyamoto. I almost feel like there was probably a screaming match when Reggie and Shigeru were talking on the phone, because Shigeru Miyamoto thinks that Wii Sports should have cost money and Reggie didn't. He's like, that should be a pack-in game. And Reggie shared this interview that he had with IGN to say, hey, we included Wii Sports with the Wii, and the Wii was a huge success. The Nintendo Wii sold 101 million units, and many would argue, including me, that Wii Sports wasn't. Yes, it was a tech demo showing what they could do with the motion controls for the Wii, but it was more than a tech demo. That was a game, okay? That was a fairly fun game, but nonetheless, it was a game that showcased what the Wii could do. It helped make the Wii wildly successful, and it was a console that sold over 100 million units. And that was Reggie's point. If you want to nickel and dime the customer for everything, you may end up hurting your own pockets as the company trying to sell the customer a product in the long run. If you include something that shows off what the console is capable of, it may attract more people to your hardware, and in the long term, you may sell more units. But nonetheless, Reggie isn't the president of Nintendo America anymore, and now they're moving on to more expensive games, and they're charging for a tech demo, $10. Good job, Nintendo. That's really pro-consumer of you.
You blew it. Capiche?
Now let's talk about the battery. And I know many people are going to say I'm beating a dead horse with this, but nonetheless, I'm going to smack this horse around. Why is the battery on a $450 console not replaceable? I'm not asking for it to be powered by AA's, and I understand the entire electronics industry has moved on from non-replaceable batteries, but there's absolutely no excuse for the Nintendo Switch 2 battery and the Nintendo Switch battery to not be replaceable. Now, when it comes to devices like smartphones, to a small degree, I understand. They're making smartphones that are water resistant and dirt resistant, and to have them completely sealed, even though there are ways that make it possible to do that with a replaceable battery, I get it. It's easier to make something water and dust resistant if you don't have something where the battery is replaceable. But the Nintendo Switch 2 is not IP68 or 69 water resistant. Why is the battery not replaceable? I have the same argument for laptop manufacturers and across the board. If your device is not designed to resist water or dust or dirt, there is absolutely no reason that there should not be a way to replace that battery easily. Again, I know this is something that I should have complained about in like 2011, 2012. I think I did back in the day. But a perfect example is my kids had a Switch. And you know what happened to that battery over time? It started to swell and the back of the Switch started to lift. And that Switch ended up being DOA. And it was working before that happened. So I hate that we live in an era, and it's been this way for a while. I get it that you buy electronics and you're essentially buying something that's somewhat disposable, but here we are. And look, I know they do it to cut costs, because to create a mechanism where you have to click in the battery and insert it and take it out would hit into their profit margins, but would it really hit that hard? Like, it's just worth it to make the battery replaceable. It's pro-consumer. It adds to the life of the product. But I know that's not what they want. They want the product to be somewhat disposable. So when they come out with a revision of the Switch 2 a couple years down the line, the Switch 2 Lite or the Switch 2 OLED, you'll go out and buy it because the battery in your launch Switch 2 is barely working anymore. Now, speaking of battery, this is the biggest issue I have with the Nintendo Switch 2. Is its battery life. Now, the original Switch, I'll go through all the different models here. The OG Switch that you could get back in March 2017 had a battery life that ranged from 2.5 to 6.5 hours. The OLED model actually went from 4.5 to 9 hours. That's a huge jump. The Nintendo Switch Lite was 3 to 7 hours. And with the Switch 2, we're actually going in reverse now in terms of how much battery life you'll get out of a charge on the Switch 2, is 2 to 6.5 hours. It's actually less than the OG launch Switch. Now, again, I understand that it's way more capable, the Switch 2. I understand the screen could do 120 hertz. I understand that it's going to have variable refresh rate, and the games are going to be more demanding. And if you're running a higher refresh rate game on the Switch 2 and you're playing in portable mode, it's going to suck up that battery. But here I'm thinking with the efficiency they're going to have with having the NVIDIA custom processor in there, which is ARM-based, I'm like, all right, man, cool. It's 10 watts in portable mode. You're going to be able to get at least like 3 hours and change on the low end, right? No, we're not. And that was one of the things I was actually the most excited about with the Switch 2 is that, look, I love the Steam Deck OLED. I love the ROG Ally X. I even have a GPD Win handheld as well. And they're great. And they could play a lot of AAA games at decent settings. But the problem is the battery life. And that's what I was hoping, having a dedicated console from Nintendo, that they'll find a way to eke out more battery life. And I was hoping at the bare minimum on the low end, we were going to get about 3 hours out of the Switch 2. No, we're not getting that. So it kind of took the wind out of my excitement sails. That sounds a little weird, but I'm going to go with it when it comes to the Switch 2, because if the battery life is the same as my ROG Ally to a degree, what's the point of the Switch 2? I'm going to get one. Yes, I'm excited for it, but that alone made me significantly less excited. That poor battery life made me less excited than I was at first before I read that. So leave your thoughts in the comments section below. Do you have any concerns with the Switch 2? I mean, we could go into tariffs, but that's not involving the console or Nintendo. That's a whole other can of nonsense that I don't feel like going into right now. Is there something you wanted to see on the Switch 2 that you're not getting, or are you happy with the console just the way it is? Anyway, this is Rich Tomorrow, signing out with a giant bird next to me. Make sure you sub to this channel. I'll have more gaming news and other things real soon. I think I'm going to make a video on Becky Boop from Lolcow Live. Have a lot to say about her. That's why this channel is named Rich Tomorrow. Because tomorrow I don't know what the hell I want to talk about, and it may not be tech related. See you soon. Hey, if you watched the whole video, what the hell are you doing? You're not subbed yet? Click that sub button. I live stream here all the time. We have a good time. Make sure to become a subscriber. It's free. Click the button now and hit that bell too. Be a man.